Here's number 26 from chapter 1. So we have two bicyclists that are starting at the same place, and they're going to a campsite, but they're going to take different routes. So bicyclist A, wrong color, is going to go east first for 180 meters, and then go north for 1,430 meters. Bicyclist B is going to go north first for 1,950 meters. And then the question is, where does he have to go? How far, when he's at this corner, how far is he from the campsite, and at what angle does he have to go? This is what we don't know. So let's assign some variables here. Let's call this one vector A. Let's call this one vector B. So bicycle A, the purple bicycle goes vector A and then vector B and ends up at the campsite. The green bicycle, we'll call that vector C first, takes vector C first, and then needs to take vector D to the campsite. So they both end up at the same place. They both have the same resultant. So vector A plus vector B has to equal vector C plus vector D. And now we can figure out what this is by adding their components together. So we're going to break these up into their X components and their Y components. Nice and boring. A in the X direction plus B in the X direction equals C in the X direction plus D in the X direction. A in the Y direction plus B in the Y direction equals C in the Y direction plus D in the Y direction. So this is going to be the positive X direction. This is going to be the positive Y direction. So A in the X direction, 180 meters. B in the X direction, it has no component in that direction. C has no component in that direction. Oops, this needs to be an equal sign. And D is whatever it is. So that tells me that D in the X direction is 1080 meters. In the Y direction, A has no component in the Y direction. B is all in the Y direction, 1430. C goes 1950 in the Y direction. And now we need to know what D is in the Y direction. Do some nice simple math, and we end up with negative 520 meters. So the bicyclist has to backtrack a little bit. So now we need to figure out how long D is. So let's make a nice little triangle. We have the components of our triangle here. We're going to have D in the X direction, D in the Y direction. So we have a nice little triangle that looks like this. dx, which is 1080, dy, which is 520. My negative sign is because it points down. So now let's figure out what this is. Here's going to be my resultant dx, just plain d, and we need to find it with respect to the y, with respect to east. East points this way, so to come off of that angle, I'm looking for theta. So d squared equals, oops, came off the screen there for a second. D squared is 1080 squared plus 520 squared. Do some math. So D equals 1,198.6 meters. Three significant figures, three significant figures, three significant figures. three significant figures. One, that goes to 0.200 meters. This one is significant. If I wanted to be a stinker about it, I would go like this. 1, 2, 3. Although this is fine. Now, and our angle, the tangent of theta is opposite over hypotenuse, 1080. When we solve for theta, theta is the inverse tangent of 520 over 1080, which gives me 25.7 degrees.